Today is all about VA loans with our VA specialist, Zell Railey.
Welcome to Community Real Estate Roots, Agents Building Relationships, where we explore the heart of real estate through meaningful connections. Join Alicia, Deidre, and Lisa as they guide you through stories behind every sold sign and dive into how agents nurture communities, one home and one relationship at a time.
So Zell, how's it going?
Doing good. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you?
Yeah, so my name is Zell Railey. I work for Birmingham Mortgage Group right here in town. I've been doing this for coming on 8 years now. And Army veteran, so the VA loan and helping out my fellow vets is really a passion of mine. I enjoy doing it.
Yes, you do it very, very well. I'll just give Zell some kudos before, and you'll know by the end of this podcast what I'm talking about. Has educated me more about the VA process than anybody I've ever had to do it. So you're very great at explaining it to the realtor. So thank you. But I hear you two already knew each other.
Yeah, we did. So funny story. I guess about 2 years ago, we met when Matt still had his construction business. I found him. It might have been through you, actually. I can't remember.
No, it was through.
It was from Adrian. Yes. So I asked our mutual friend Adrian, hey, I need a good contractor. He put me in touch with this guy.
I was like, oh, you need to call Matt.
Yeah.
He's from Britain.
Wait, let me hear that one more time.
It came out Australian. So hey, call Matt.
Yeah, so he comes over, looks at the house, and we wind up talking for almost 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, once we figured out, because there's always that little dance you do with a veteran where you're like, oh, okay, first question, what'd you do? And then he's like, oh, I was, long guns, field artillery. I was like, oh, okay, who are you with? He's like, oh, I was 101st. I was like, oh, yeah, I was 101st too. And then from there, it just goes.
Yep, from there it was all downhill.
Yeah.
So we were both in the same unit.
Yep.
At different times, though.
Oh, wow.
And then we were both in Afghanistan.
Yep.
At different times, though. So we have a lot of the same experiences and those common threads. And like I said, 2 years later, here we are.
Wow, that's cool.
I just love that story.
Well, I mean, we need to know all about the VA loans. Because like I said earlier, we went through it and I had no clue what was out there, what could have been, so you're the specialist, so tell us all about it.
I've never worked with a VA loan, so what do I need to know to help my
excellent.
people?
Okay, so
Excellent.
I'm a newbie.
excellent question. Yes. So obviously, I am biased. I'm a veteran. I love helping out veterans, but the VA loan is the best option out there for financing. First thing you think of is no down payment. So they don't have to come out of pocket for the down payment, which is huge. It's a huge entry barrier for a lot of people. Second, there's no mortgage insurance, which is going to reduce their monthly payment, increase their buying power. You think, $100 a month in mortgage insurance doesn't really hurt all that much. It can. So the VA loan, there's no down payment, there's no mortgage insurance, which are huge.
That's a huge plus
Yeah.
right there.
The interest rates are 98 times out of 100, the VA loan is going to have a lower interest rate than any other product out there, which again is going to save them on their monthly payment, increasing their purchase power, and also decreasing the amount of interest they pay over time. So just those facts right there are huge.
They are, yeah.
And that interest rate is lower without having to buy down points.
Yes,
usually,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, it's always going to be lower without buying down points. That is always an option. That I have that conversation with everyone. Hey, here are the pros, here are the cons. Run the numbers, make up your mind. But even without buying down the rate, it's
the best rate.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain how that works? Like just real quick.
Yeah. So buying down rate. Let's just say the rate that day is going to be 6. That's what you're going to get. 6%. If you want a lower interest rate, you can pay more money up front as part of your closing cost and buy it down to a 5.75, a 5.5, etc.
And that money goes to the lender.
Yes, that's an extra fee that goes to the lender. You're literally buying a lower interest rate. So,
For the life of the loan?
For the life of the loan, yes.
Even better.
Mm-hmm. So, another thing too that a lot of people don't realize, and the VA loan's gotten a bad rap in
I
the
was going to
past.
mention, I feel like sometimes
Yeah.
when we submit, I know even when I've submitted off a VA loan, I feel like it's not getting the full attention that it should.
Yes.
People shy away from it.
You're absolutely right, and there is some historical truth to that. Prior to 9/11, the lending industry was much different. Not a lot of VA loans were going on. Not a lot of people were eligible, and the VA itself, the process was much more difficult. The past 23 years, it's gotten revamped a lot. It's much smoother, much easier, and a lot of those historical difficulties are gone now. But the perception is still there. And that's something that we have to fight day in and day out, saying, hey, the
To break
VA loan's
through.
a good product. These things that used to happen don't happen anymore. So yeah, that's a huge thing that we have to get through to, agents, to other loan officers, to the public, that you don't have to worry about it anymore.
That's good.
Well, the biggest perception that still holds on out there now is I hear sellers over and over again, though, I really don't want this because the appraisal guy is too strict.
Yeah, no, that's probably the biggest one. And
The biggest myth,
the biggest,
misconception.
biggest misconception.
Misconception?
Yes. Yes, that. What I tell people about the appraisal is they are looking for value. They're not a home inspector. They're looking to go in and tell you what is the value of this home. They do look for health and safety issues.
Okay.
Anything past that, they're not supposed to point out. Sometimes they do.
Mobility stuff too.
Yes.
What would you consider health and safety? Just
So-
a general.
If you've got exposed wiring, if you've got exposed plumbing, if you've got holes in the wall, banisters not
That are not have
not
handrails
installed,
and
no,
stuff.
yeah, no handrails, stuff like that is what
Gotcha.
they're going to be looking for. Literally health and or safety of the people that are moving in. Mold will be a showstopper, not mildew, but mold, and the elephant in the room, paint chips.
So yeah, I've heard.
Yeah.
I think paint chips hit us on our last
Yes.
one.
So, but those are directly related to health and safety. Anything past that, they should not point out. Sometimes they will. When they do, I am able to go to the VA and fight that and say, this is not a health issue, this is not a safety issue, and the VA has the ability to overturn the appraiser and get rid of that.
And that's something that the consumer largely isn't aware of, is like what Zell does behind the scenes to make it all come together. He's an advocate for the buyer, and in the sense that, he can have that conversation with the originator or whoever else and say, look, this was identified as a possible problem, but this is where I see it can be concluded or it can be handled. And so that conversation can occur. So it just doesn't go to an entity and sit there and negative stamp, not
Right.
approved, whatever. There is a conversation happening behind the scenes.
Absolutely,
And that's
yeah.
where you have an advocate on your side when you're working with Zell.
Yeah, that's where it comes in handy to work with someone that can guide you through the process. Just as on your side, the real estate side, the more you know, the easier it's going to be. It's the same on the lending side. The more you know about the VA process, the easier it's going to be.
I had submitted an offer yesterday, actually, to someone in the Auburn, Opelika area.
Regal.
Yes, in our
Roll Tide.
divided family, so whatever. But our contracts are different than theirs, and one of our paragraphs says something to the effect of if the lender requests repairs. And she had no idea. What do you mean if the lender requests repairs? Why would they? And then I had to try to explain to her. I was like, well, different lenders have different things, and that's one of the things I told her.
Yeah, and that's where if an appraiser notes something legitimate that has to be fixed, that's where that comes in. I've seen that much more common on FHA loans than VA, though.
Really?
So,
Okay. That's interesting.
That's Speaking of, so you kind of specialize VA, but you can do any type of loan.
I can do anything and everything. So, we offer all the standard stuff. My book of business right now is just over 50% conventional, just because that's the vast majority of the business out there.
Right.
But this year I'm sitting at right about 40% VA.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So I do specialize in it. I do love it, but I do everything else as well.
That's good to know, just on it.
And also, speaking about the ratios and stuff, just going back to it matters who you work with. So nationwide, the average is 1 to 2 VA loans a year for a lender. That's your average nationwide. And like I said, I'm at just over 40% right now. So
Wow.
going back to the misconceptions of the VA loans being hard, they're no harder than a conventional loan. They are different. And if you only do one a year, those differences can trip you up.
Yeah, it's like, yeah,
So,
makes sense.
Yeah, I guess it's the difference between looking at a task and thinking to yourself, yeah, I can do this, versus looking at the task and cracking your knuckles with a grin thinking, I can do this well.
exactly, yes.
Are there any limits as to how much they can finance with the VA, or?
Yes and no. So this is one of those differences. If a veteran has what we call, or I should say service member, anyone who's eligible, if they have what's called full entitlement, they can get 100% financing with no limit. 2 million, 3 million. If they want to go buy an $11 million house,
I literally thought that there was a cutoff.
there's not.
Okay.
No. I know a friend of mine who's a loan officer in town that I think last year financed a $1.9 million 100% financing VA loan.
Wow.
So, if they do not have full entitlement, and I'll get back to what that means here in a minute, there is a limit. But the limit is not, here's your limit for everyone. It varies by the service member and what they've done in the past with their VA loan. It's extremely complicated. You have to do actually math, which is awesome. But that will vary.
Gotcha.
But generally we say no, there's no limit for people with full entitlement. The vast majority of veterans have full entitlement.
All right, so touch on full entitlement now.
So entitlement is one of those ridiculous government things because the VA is part of the government. We all love the government.
We all know that, yep.
So they make things more complicated than it should. A veteran is entitled a certain amount of what they call entitlement or eligibility. They put a dollar amount on it, but it's not a dollar amount. It's used in place of, it's just like X and Y. And if you're using your loan for the first time, you have full entitlement. You can do whatever you want with it. If you have used your VA loan, you sell that house, and you buy another one, you still have full entitlement because you do not have an active VA loan. If you buy a house with a VA loan and you move over here and you keep your previous residence and turn it into a rental property, that's when you do not have full entitlement because part of that entitlement is still tied to this property.
Right.
So your entitlement is no longer 100%. It might be 70%. It might be 50%. And again, that's when the loan limit comes into effect for the second property.
And that's where being dual military really helps because that happened to us.
Absolutely.
I had a house that I purchased and we moved prior to when I thought I was going to move. So it fell into that, how long, what's your window of opportunity here that you're going to be here? What's the minimum amount of time you need to get an ROI? But anyway, so I used it as a rental property. So the next house that we got, it's my wife's turn to pop open the VA letter and be like, okay, we'll use mine this time. So it was like, so she brags about how she bought this house. And I'm just like, does this work? It's like, whatever, you pick your fights.
So I guess the next thing is the funding fee. That's always a question
Yes.
that comes up, especially with people that are using the benefit for the first time. They hear about this funding fee. What is the funding fee? So going back, you don't have mortgage insurance and you don't have a down payment. The funding fee is in lieu of those things. So FHA, your conventional, and your USDA all have your monthly mortgage insurance. You also do not have that with VA. So instead of having the monthly mortgage insurance, which you pay every month as part of your monthly payment, they're going to impose a fee on you up front. It's a percentage of the loan amount, and it varies depending on certain circumstances. But the good thing is you can roll that into the actual loan amount. So it's not going to increase your closing cost. You don't have to shell out more dollars at the closing table. So there's an upside and a downside to it. You're paying that, if you want to say paying that mortgage insurance upfront in a lump sum, yes, you are. But it's financed into your loan amount. So it's going to increase your loan amount a little bit. It will increase your monthly payment a few dollars a month, but it's really insignificant. I've never seen the funding fee keep someone out of a house.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Well,
Also, I'm sorry.
no, you're good. Go.
No, the next thing about that is if you're on active duty and you're a Purple Heart recipient, you are exempt from paying the funding fee. If you're a veteran and you receive any disability from the VA, you are also exempt from the funding fee.
Okay. I think that's why I didn't realize, because I
Yeah.
didn't understand the funding fee, but my husband's disabled from.
So he didn't have to pay it.
Yeah, he didn't have to pay it. That
So,
was new to me on that one. So,
And
okay.
right now, it's about 50-50 people that use the VA loan. About half of them don't have to pay that funding fee.
I didn't know that about the Purple Heart.
Yes.
See, I didn't
I
know
just
that.
thought you got the
See, you're
anti-marksmanship
learning
badge.
something today.
He did learn something.
I'm learning a lot.
Well, with all the new changes and all the talks of buyers actually having to pay commission, how is the VA, how's that being affected with the VA loan?
Yes. So that was a huge talking point over the past few months. Up until now, the VA has said a veteran home buyer is not allowed to pay their realtor's commission. It's been against federal law.
Right, and that's one of the main,
Right.
we were so concerned about when all this was coming out.
So if you're representing a buyer, you had to get your compensation from the listing brokerage. With everything that's happened over the past few months, the VA looked at that and said, we need to fix this. So as of August the 10th, just a couple weeks ago, veterans are now able to pay their buying realtor's commission. So it's the exact same as FHA or conventional or anything else from your side.
Is there any stipulation or any kind of like, you're only allowed to do this percent per
No.
this price? Okay.
No, the guideline says what is reasonable and customary for your area.
Oh, okay.
So it's pretty broad,
Yeah.
but
Which we
Yeah.
all know is negotiable.
yes.
So, yeah.
They do say that buyer's agents are still encouraged to seek compensation from the listing
Seller,
brokerage.
yeah.
Which everybody should to be looking
Right.
out for their agent, their
Right.
people.
But if they can't do that, they can get paid from their client.
Awesome. That's good to hear, because we were, I think, even I was talking about that with my husband, and he's like, that's not good, you know? So we were very concerned when all this rolled down.
Yes,
So I'm
absolutely.
so glad to hear that, because I
Yeah.
actually have not heard that. So you said it was August 10th.
August 10th. So anyone
glad.
who's went under contract August 10th or after.
Good to know.
Yeah, it's great.
Perfect. Well, anything else that we must know? You think that we need to know?
I think those are all the highlights. That's that's the 40,000 foot view. So, but the biggest takeaway, I guess, is for service members, veterans who are going to utilize the VA benefit, don't be scared of it. There's nothing to be scared of. Work with someone who knows what they're doing on both sides, and you're going to be fine.
I think one of the biggest fears for a lot of the veterans is that they, the E4 mafia, or if you will, or the for the Navy people that are listening, the gouge on the street is that your VA loan is a one and done.
That's excellent. Yes, so that's another huge misconception is the VA loan can be used one time and that's it. It's gone forever. When I bought my first house, it was before I got in the industry. I believed that, and my loan officer told me that. So my first house, I went conventional because I thought I could only use it once, and I wanted to save that benefit for a bigger, nicer house down the road that I was going to stay in for a long time. You can use your VA loan as many times as you want. There is no restriction.
Yeah.
That's the
So it's like
short
you have
of
a
it.
certain amount, whether you use all of it for this purchase, and then if you sell that house, that money goes back into that lump sum.
Correct.
But if you still have it tied up in this, you have a remainder that you can use for the second purchase. Is that correct?
Absolutely
Okay.
correct. Yes. So if you
In layman's terms.
yes, if you
Right, yeah.
if you keep houses and just buy the next one and keep turning them into rentals, eventually you
So
will.
you can use them in rentals, not just.
You can.
Okay.
If you have to purchase the home as a primary residence
I was
only.
gonna say, yeah, careful with that.
Yes, you have to purchase a home as a primary residence. But if you're PCS, if you're moving across the country, they're not going to make you sell this house to reuse it. You can turn a house that you've left into a rental property and keep it as a rental property with a
Gotcha.
VA loan on it.
Is there like a time frame that you have to be living in it to be able to do that?
No.
So you can just buy it.
No.
That's a
Have
slippery slope, and I
Yes.
would not
You
go
don't
down
want to. Okay. So I don't want to mislead anybody.
It has to make sense. And myself and the underwriters are going to look at this and say, does this make sense? If it does, okay. If it doesn't make sense, like, we think this person might be abusing
This
the
Like
privilege
how's
in
the
order
check
to
and balance
buy.
to make sure people
So-
aren't using it?
For active duty service members, it's really easy. If they're being moved across the country because the Army says you're going to move, then legitimate. You can even move within the same city. Dealing with a gentleman a couple years ago, they got divorced. And so he had to move out. Wife kept the house with a VA loan. He bought a house on the same street because he wanted to be close to his kids.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate reason. If you buy a house and a year later you move out and buy another one for the sole purpose of turning this one into a rental and then turning this one into a rental,
That's abuse.
that's abuse of the
Yeah.
loan, and that's not going to go through. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually look at it like, if you're dealing with VA, then it's kind of like clearing CIF.
yes,
The central
Yeah.
facility. It's like one of the things that you always have in your throat when you're trying to clear a post. You have to go and turn in your gear. There's always somebody there that's like, there's a piece of dirt on this, and it's like, I never took it out of the box. So as long as you can clear that thing with no strings attached, then you are good
Yep.
to go for the next assignment.
the
I
VA
never thought
guidelines
about
are.
that either. As if you're married and you buy it under VA, then you get divorced and you want to move. What happens to the VA loan? It stays with the house even though you're not there.
Correct, it does, unless the spouse refinances.
Okay.
But I think that illustrates perfectly what Zell was saying as far as how the VA loan structure has transformed over the past 23 years. It's no longer just some monolith that you're looking at the wall and you're like, can I do this? No. There's a dialogue. There's actually an intelligent conversation going on about each individual situation that they're presented with in order to perform
Absolutely, yeah.
this function for the veteran or the service member.
The guidelines for VA are extremely broad and extremely lenient for that reason. The two qualifications are, does it make sense? Can you document it? If you've got both of those, the VA says you can do it.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
All right. Well,
It's different than I thought. I thought it was just going to be black and white. You
No.
check the boxes and that's it. You don't check the boxes, you're out.
there is,
Sorry.
now, to be fair, there is a little bit of that because we're dealing with the government.
Yeah.
There's
You got to
paperwork.
be able to prove it.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's a very easy, very smooth process generally.
If you know somebody who's had experience and knows
Yes.
what they're doing,
Correct.
plug for you.
he's going to be my go-to person.
Yeah.
Now. I mean,
Yeah, you seem to know what
'cause
you're talking about,
Still,
so.
we've discussed before, I still don't know everything about it, and was frustrated in the first process when my agent didn't know. So I'm glad to have someone that I can just send a quick text to and ask questions, and he does. He's answered my questions before, even though I've not had the opportunity to use him. So it's great to have someone like that.
Yeah,
in
and
our
it's
pocket.
it's great being with ERA King because we have the opportunity to have all these different programs that we work with to be able to help.
Yep.
So
I agree.
contact us or contact him. plug.
Well, guys, I think that is another wrap for this week. We want to thank Zell so much for coming and teaching us all about the VA loans and the structures. So we appreciate that so much. And hopefully we'll be in touch with him soon with new VA clients. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Your Neighbor, Your Agents. Please visit www.yourneighboryouragents.com.